So I've been out here this morning. I always like to come to Do It Right's little mini Hickok 45 range here, so be sure to subscribe to Do It Right AK. But we've been shooting guns and doing some reviews and just testing guns and ammo. And I thought it would be great to have a quick little argument on Glocks because, as you know, I'm a Glock fanboy, and Glock fanboys annoy you sometimes. So I want to see what your problem with Glock is. And just to start off, I will admit that I think HK is superior to Glock. I prefer HKs. I can't always afford them, but I will admit that HK is a much better pistol than Glock, and we kind of agree on that. But secondary to that, I do think Glock is one of the more reliable guns out there. They do have problems sometimes, but I'm a Glock fanboy. I've found them to be reliable. So,
well, you haven't been having too much success today, and even with the Chris Vector magazine, which is supposed to be compatible with the Glock 21 magazines, you don't have complete reliability because it's even sensitive to ammo. Some 9mm, like aluminum case and steel case, people have problems with that. That's something that's commonly reported. Now, does that mean that it's a bad pistol? No. However, when you have blind loyalty and you treat a simple machine like it's a god, we don't only have a problem in general, but it's like a cultural problem because you get a clique of people that just follow that. It's kind of like any other religion where people don't actually do their own research and have their own feelings about it. They just let other people tell them what to feel about it.
Glock Perfection. Yeah. Sign me up.
I mean, when it comes to like 9mm, like the Glock 17, you can't really go wrong necessarily, but the reason why I don't have them is I think that there's such a religion out there. It's not necessarily my goal, but I'm just really more attached to other things that don't have a religion behind them necessarily, and just find the merits in other pistols and keeping things a little more simple than just buying a Glock because everybody's buying a Glock. There's always going to be good options out there, but I think just having a gun religion is a little bit dangerous.
Not me. I'm like Homer Simpson, leader. Just because I've gone out with my friends and their SIGs fail and their Kimbers fail, and then I shoot my Glock and it doesn't have a single problem. I've just found them to be extremely reliable. Their stock sights suck. This has metal sights.
Glock Perfection, right?
And they're blocky. And the triggers suck. This has a aftermarket trigger, but I'm used to their triggers. I find them extremely reliable, more reliable than most other brands. So I got to say I'm a fan. I don't think you can go wrong with that. I mean,
are you neglecting to acknowledge that you had malfunctions with certain ammo and magazines with your 357 SIG?
This was
universal praise.
It did seem to be ammo sensitive, so I'm glad we found that out.
But that's the thing. Does it make it a bad pistol? And that's the argument. Just because I'm recognizing that it's not a perfect pistol does not mean that I'm saying that it's not an option for people. As I was saying, I'm not really a fan necessarily of the P365 as far as the religion behind it. Oh, it's innovative. That's BS. All they're doing is trimming down some polymer, and they're minimizing the space in it. But for the most part, there's nothing really. There's no witchcraft involved. There's no magic. There's no Harry Potter wand being applied there. It's just they're taking away a little bit more. Therefore, they're having reliability issues because of durability, and there's only so much we can do with the materials we have on this earth that we've discovered so far. So, we're always going to have limitations. That's just the nature of it. With Glocks, the way it was designed, it's not necessarily supposed to be stepping out of the bounds of 9mm. And that's okay. You can still find pretty reliable Glocks in those calibers, but be cautious that you're not just blindly trusting it and taking it out of the box, that it's going to be trustworthy.
Disagree. Sometimes you get duds, but for $550, $600, I have found you can get a Glock without doing anything to it. Don't even lube it up. Take it right out. Let it sit in salt water overnight. Whatever. It's going to fire. It's going to shoot.
You can do that with a police trade-in HK that actually costs only $400.
That's true. That's where I do agree with them. HKs are better.
The VP9's complete crap. Buy a Glock, not the VP9.
Get a USP.
See, I'm not biased.
Right.
I actually recognize reality, but you know, that's
I agree with you on the HKs. Yeah, and BP9s are crap, but like the USPs, all
USPs,
those.
P2000s, the P30s, the mainstay meat and potatoes of what makes HK HK. That's the way to go. But are you wanting to spend $1,000 on something? I mean, if you're having problems with your Glock for the most part has been taking care of people. That wasn't my experience when I was having issues, but that doesn't mean that universally they're never going to take care of me. I'm just not necessarily interested. I'm more interested in things like this. This is a $300 gun. This is a Canik TP9D. It's built to NATO standards and stuff like that. Oh, you're
you
crossing
saw
that.
it. You saw me.
I saw the
like
last
this.
bit apart. Yeah, but you know, this thing costs, you know, it's relatively inexpensive, and it's still held to NATO standards and stuff. And
I found it to be reliable when I shot it. Yeah, it's a fun gun.
and that's
too.
the funny thing about the Turks is this is why I'm breaking out away from Glocks, is I'm trying to find these little things where everybody's pretty much caught up with Glocks, except for your classics like the Sig 220, obviously, you know, a metal frame and stuff like that. But pretty much all these other companies, they've taken what Glock may have a weakness on, and has kind of built on that. Not all the time, but Smith & Wesson did pretty much the same thing, modifying a 9mm pistol to take 40. It's a little bit more reliable, but the durability is still crap. Not as bad as the Glock necessarily, because they had issues with unsupported chambers and stuff like that, but
that's why they're so reliable.
with the
it's
Gen
got,
4s,
it's got more wiggle room though. The chamber's a little shorter, so the bullet just wiggles right in there, and they seem to be more reliable feeding than other guns, but at a cost. Obviously, I did that video.
But it doesn't really have the aluminum case. It's sensitive to things like aluminum case and steel case. If you have certain ammo that you can't run in your Glock, it's not 100% reliability, right? It's not 100% reliable if you have to watch what you're getting. If you get a random bag of all different ammunition mixed up and you're like, I'm probably going to have a malfunction in this, then it's not totally reliable, right?
Most ammo feeds through Glocks, I've found.
But if you can't say all, I flat nose and stuff like that, you might actually have issues. But that's the thing with most pistols, you don't know unless you try it, right? So hundreds of rounds of ridiculous types of ammo, flat points and stuff like that, that's a good test for it. If you want to have that notion of reliability, shooting rounds that you never shoot, then yeah, that's taken to the extreme for the sake of this argument when we're talking about general universal judgments of reliability. But for the most part, you stick to what you're actually going to use and you're going to be fine. Full metal jackets for the most part, not ridiculous stuff like maybe double tap or custom reloads that are going to be hotter than necessary, kind of like what I do. You're typically going to be fine, but if I'm going to get a Glock, it would be a Glock 17 or, a Glock 17. I liked my Glock 17. I don't know why I gave it up. I actually do very well with the stock Glocks. Okay. So I have no problem with that. But as far as it being a religion, I can't do that with any gun. I can't pick up any gun and say, this is going to be the best gun ever, even HKs, because I actually have broken trigger return springs on them within a short round count, because one of the hardest things you can do is actually perfect a spring. That's one thing we have not been able to get right, because it's a process of heat treating, and unless you're going to look at every little molecule inside the steel to make sure it's bonded together properly, you can't always get it perfect.
And I did have one Glock that was a dud. It was a Glock 20, though. As far as the 9mm, I think they're reliable with almost every metal, any round. Even the steel-cased Russian stuff was molded for a Glock 17.
I always had good luck with them, but some people had a lot of problems. And know that my favorite thing is when people praise Glock and then they're like, well, as long as you're sticking with good ammo. If that's the most reliable gun ever and it's a god of polymer and steel.
It is, though.
If it's a god of polymer and steel, then how the hell is it got to stick with good ammo and that you can't just fire anything? If this is the apocalypse, how the hell is that a good apocalypse gun when, you're just like, well, there's a lot of aluminum case ammo. I guess I'm unarmed now because I'm going to have malfunctions.
The Glock 19s and 17s do feed just about any ammo.
Yeah.
It's just the other ones don't.
If you polish the chamber, typically they'll be reliable with everything. So,
that's what I need to do.
but taking it stock and doing that, but that's pretty much with every gun though. You have polishing chambers and stuff like 1911s or whatever. Pretty much every gun will work a little better, but there's some guns like FNSs and FNXs and stuff like that that already have polished chambers, and they're fine. But we're working with simple machines. We haven't perfected it yet because we're always going to have malfunctions. We're dealing with springs which do wear out. We're dealing with metallurgy. Oh, by the way, 9mm Glocks at very high round counts. Even if you're changing the springs all the time, you are going to deal with a brittle breech face. That is something that actually has been an occurrence. It doesn't mean that it'll fail at around 60,000 rounds, but before Todd Green passed, he was doing a test on the Gen 4. Most updated one, right?
Yeah.
Breech face crack at about 60,000 rounds.
So anyways, guys, we both agree that it's Glock Perfection. I win the argument. Glock rules. No, they're not perfect.
It's his channel. It's his channel. He automatically wins.
We'll have to agree to disagree, but he does make some points. I did have a Glock that was a dud, but overall, I find the Glock's very reliable, and for $550, I think it's a good first choice for something that's going to work out of the box.
You can trust them and love them, but I would verify it before. But
like a god.
But yeah, whatever. It suits you as long as you're not next to me when the time comes. You know, we're good to go. Yeah, you can stay 10 feet that way and draw fire.
Anyways, chime in the comments. What do you guys think? Glock, yay or nay? Fanboy or no?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Outdoor adventure.